Okay, can I now with, as I've just introduced item 13, and is Richard Hughes here, Denise O'Shaughnessy? Moved by Councillor Collins, seconded by Councillor Simpson. Richard, Denise, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is this on? Yep. So this report is following on from the previous resolution given by this committee, where it was agreed that we would go away and start to develop a process for working with the central government on the collaboration of some core targets for the Auckland Plan. In the report that you've got in front of you, we've identified some common areas of interest with central government and some general criteria. Those common areas of interest were actually discussed through the Auckland Plan Refresh process and also through the Planning Committee workshops, but I won't bore you with trying to sort of go over those again. In terms of those areas of interest, we do have housing, transport, environment and social wellbeing. The criteria that we're speaking about are obviously the three big challenges for the Auckland Plan. Just as a quick reminder, that's how we manage growth, the growing inequality and the degrading environment. The final criteria that we've been using in these initial discussions is also that when we do sit down and develop a shared target with central government or where we might land it, that it is fundamentally driven through a spatial response. So what we're meaning by that is in terms of how and where we grow. So when we set a target, how does the high level development strategy within the Auckland Plan set us on the path to achieving that target? The targets are also, as you can probably tell, those areas that we consider we need to work with central government on specifically. So that sort of divides them out slightly from previous things that we would have looked at through the LTP. So there will be targets within the LTP, obviously. So really what we're seeking today is the approval to obviously set up a political working group, which has already been introduced. The purpose of that working group is because we can anticipate at times the need to get some fairly quick guidance and timely, I should say. And yep, in terms of the committee, as you can appreciate, having to go back and forth with central government, we would like to be checking in with those key members of the committee. But just to sort of put your minds at rest, obviously there would be no establishing or setting of targets outside of this planning committee. And finally, we'll be looking to bring you an update as to how things are progressing somewhere around November with our first implementation report and update.
Thank you, Richard. Councillor Fletcher.
I've got a query I'd like to put to the officers. Where you've, as staff, identified criteria as a starting point, I'd just really like to interrogate reducing environmental degradation. Naturally, I support that. But one of the objectives that I would like to see with this is the retention of the natural beauty of Tamaki Makaurau. And often we can do things that may have limited environmental impact, but can, in the eyes of some, and it might be subjective, have really, in terms of natural beauty, considerable degradation. So I wondered if you'd actually given consideration to that in the initial work that you'd undertaken, and how that might be incorporated.
There's a lot of, obviously, work to be done and how we actually land that. So I suppose because it's a conversation with central government, the approach that we're sort of adopting here in the environmental space, for example, where our minds sort of led us at this point is, say, for example, Kāri dieback. It's a big issue for Auckland. Is it fundamentally a result of how and where we grow, or is it a result of basically a virus or whatever having entered the environment? We would probably be saying that's something that would sit outside of the plan, or something that we wouldn't be sitting down with central government in terms of developing a target. But if we were then looking at water quality, for example, receiving environment, sediment, etc., that's something that we would say is fundamentally caused by the high-level development strategy. And again, I think the beauty side of things, however we might capture that, obviously that is also a component of how and where we grow, protecting view shafts and various other things. So nothing's off the table in terms of where that might land at this point, apart from, you would just need to go through a process.
Good point, Councillor Fletcher. Can I follow that up? Because I think that's a really important point. The language at the moment is reducing environmental degradation, and what I'm hearing you say is it's about the positive direction. I hope I'm not putting those words into your mouth, but is it more along the lines of improving environmental health? Is that what?
Well, yes. It is, I guess, somewhat.
So just go back on that one.
Rather than taking a defeatist approach to it, it's probably...
Yeah, so you could have severe degradation and you reduce that degradation, but it's actually not an improvement, back to a system, an ecosystem that is healthy. It could be just less degraded. So there is something about the language here. Is reducing environmental degradation, does that really reflect those sections of the plan that are a lot more detailed, or does improving environmental health?
Yes, sorry, that was really me trying to capture the three big challenges in a nutshell, and it doesn't do it justice. So, yeah, obviously the Auckland Plan did strive for, value and treasuring the environment and enhancing it. So, absolutely, I'll probably paraphrase that down to one word, which doesn't accurately reflect the plan or what we're trying to achieve, especially the environmental outcomes.
So, in support of Councillor Fletcher, I think if we are reflecting on those three big challenges, one of those big challenges, Councillor Fletcher, would I be accurate in saying it's not reducing environmental degradation, it's doing something more positive?
Yes.
Yep.
Can we, because the motion reflects on those three and they're listed under 13, Roman 1, can we reflect a more positive direction?
Through the Chair, could I just add, so we have based that on the three challenges that we identified through the whole development of the Auckland Plan, but the resolution passed at the Planning Committee was also about establishing targets based on the measures in the plan or aligning to those measures, and so that includes the measures that are part of the environment and cultural heritage outcomes. So we will be looking to those positive things through those outcomes when we're actually developing the targets, but we can change the wording on that as well.
I think we all know, and the plan has landed, it's firm, and the real direction is actually there within the plan. But it is an important point, as Councillor Fletcher highlights. Okay, Councillor Casey.
I just want to say just a few words about that. I didn't know that today we were deciding on the general topics for targets, so I've just seen those for the first time. And having argued with Jacques just about over every word in the social inclusion and participate, or the belonging and participation section, I would really like to belong to this subgroup that's looking at the targets, because that's where the plan, actually takes place. That's what we're measuring, and kind of, I don't want to sit out that last bit because I've been right through from A to Z, so I'm appealing to anybody who's listed there to either add me or give up your place and let me do it. So that's number one. Number two is social well-being is not what I think that section's about. It's about social inclusion. And that means everybody in Auckland, no matter what your status, belongs to the city. And that's what I want the government to sign up to, because that's what our focus was in that whole section. So if you're putting words up there, I'd rather see it as not social well-being, but social inclusion. So that was all just an appeal to belong and to be included, to be socially included in the social inclusion section.
What do we call it in the plan, Auckland 2050? Are we reflecting?
Social inclusion is definitely in there.
Okay,
so
can we just change that? Happy to change wellbeing to inclusion. Yep. 2 thumbs from Albert Eden. Good. All good? All those in favour? Second bit.
Which was, I would really like to be socially included in that small subgroup. And it's just the last part of a long process that I've really fully engaged in, and I don't want to sit out on the last bit and let somebody else do it. No disrespect to anybody who's named up there, but I really kind of want to do it too.
Look, I will include, happy to include, just add the name, and then the local boards that will be up to 4. We just need to change up to 4. Okay. Are you, members, are you happy with that?
Yes.
Okay. It's moved, seconded. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Declare that carried. Members, we will have to break because the karanga is for us to go to food. Stand adjourned.